If we haven't met, my name is Rex, and I'm a part of the leadership team here at Washington Cathedral, and I have the privilege of sharing with you another message from our Vision series that we've called Setting the Table. And today, well, let's go back a little bit. 2 weeks ago, Pastor Tim launched the series by talking about the seat of worship, really. Who we are on Sunday mornings, Saturday evenings, and what we do on Sundays, why we do what we do on our weekend worship services, and living a life of worship, and our vision for that, right? Last week, I shared from the table the seat of community, that we just can't do life alone, and we certainly can't grow in our faith alone, that we need others to do life with. We need others to grow in our faith with. And we talked about our vision for small groups and just, getting people involved in community, okay? And this week I have the opportunity to talk about something that I'm personally very, very passionate about. It's not just because this is an aspect of my leadership here during the week that I provide oversight to, but it is a really big passion for me, and that is outreach. That is being a church on the move. That is being a church of mission. And so I'm really excited to share with you about that. And next week, Pastor Tim will close the series by talking about the seat of engagement. So worship, community, outreach, what does that mean for you if this is your home church? And how can you use your gifts, your abilities, the callings that God has on your life, how can you use that to be a minister in your neighborhood and through Washington Cathedral? So really grateful to be here today and to share with you. I'm just going to get right into it. I'm going to share from one of my favorite Sunday school stories ever, and that is the story of Zacchaeus. Okay, I grew up in church. I'm born and raised in Tacoma. Don't judge me for that, but I am. And I remember learning about Zacchaeus as a little boy. I remember the Sunday school song. How many of you might have learned that? Zacchaeus was a wee little man, and a wee little man was he. You remember that song? Okay, love that song. I'll be singing that all day. Now that I sing it once, it's going to be in my head all day long. Let's get into it. Luke chapter 19. Jesus entered Jericho and made his way through the town. There was a man there named Zacchaeus. He was the chief tax collector in the region, and he had become very rich. Let me stop there real quick, because I have underlined in my Bible, he had become very rich. There's a lot of context there as why that's important in this story, how he became rich. Zacchaeus, a chief tax collector, was a Jewish person, okay? He was a Jew who had decided to go work for the enemy, the Roman Empire, as a tax collector. And how he became rich was basically by skimming, padding his pockets, taking more than what was owed, and becoming very, very rich off of his own people, most of them very poor to begin with, okay? So he was a hated man, an evil man in the eyes of people. He tried to get a look at Jesus, but he was too short to see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree beside the road, for Jesus was going to pass that way. When Jesus came by, he looked up at Zacchaeus and called him by name. "Zacchaeus," he said, "quick, come down. I must be a guest in your home today." Zacchaeus quickly climbed down and took Jesus to his house in great excitement and joy. But the people were displeased. He had gone to be the guest of a notorious sinner, they grumbled. Meanwhile, Zacchaeus stood before the Lord and said, "I will give half my wealth to the poor, and if I have cheated people on their taxes, I will give them back 4 times as much." And Jesus responded, "Salvation has come to this home today, for this man has shown himself to be a true son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save those who are lost." Let me first say this, that when it comes to vision from leadership of Washington Cathedral, it is our hope, it is our desire, it is our goal, whether it be for Sunday mornings, whether it be for discipleship, outreach, whatever it might be, we want our vision to be through the lens of Jesus, first and foremost. Because if it's not, then what we're doing here is just kind of gimmicky, right? Just a fad. We want our vision to be through the lens of Jesus. And so I've chosen this story because in this story, I've always found myself just sort of like, wow, I see through the lens of Jesus a vision for outreach. And so I'm just going to share some thoughts from this. That first, in Zacchaeus, we see that Jesus sees past his social exterior and into a searching heart. Now, he wasn't a homeless, poor, crippled man. He wasn't the prostitute that had come to Jesus. He wasn't anything, but he was very rich, but hated, very sinful, greedy man, right? He sees past his social exterior, what society had labeled him as, and he sees a searching heart, because Zacchaeus shows intentionality that he's like, okay, I'm short, so I got to do something about this, and I'm going to climb a tree so I can see this Jesus. And Jesus calls him by name, Zacchaeus, come down, for I must be a guest in your home today. The wow factor in this, friends, is that Jesus always, no matter who he was interacting with, always had the ability to see the image of God in people. No matter how sinful, no matter how far from God they were, he still had that ability to see the image of God in them. And I don't know about you, but I have not always passed that test in my life, because my human nature finds it easier to put a label on you. My human nature finds it easier to dismiss a person, or worse, become indifferent to an outsider, to a homeless person, to whatever it might be, because I think, someone else will come, I don't have time, or whatever, and you forget, wow, the image of God in them. And Jesus always sees the image of God. And the other thing that we see in this is that Jesus lived this life of mission. He was and we read throughout the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we see that in the 3 years of ministry, he was on a mission. And he says it no more clear than right here in verse 10, for the Son of Man came to seek and save those who are lost. Seek and save. Those are words of mission right there. That is a person on assignment. And he sets that example. There are no stories of him having these week-long holy huddles with his disciples where they just got together and just hung out, the two of them, while everyone else did their thing. He did spend time with his disciples, teaching and leading them. But we see way more than any of that. We see a man who was going, who was sent, and he not only was going himself, he was sending his disciples. And this is important for us as a church, friends, that right here, what we're doing, this gathering, this is our huddle. This is our huddle, where we come together. What's the game plan? Let's get focused. Let's get on the same page. But none of this is important if we aren't going, if we aren't on mission, if we aren't feeling that we are sent. The word church itself literally means sent ones. Jesus was on a mission. And we see this when he invites himself over to Zacchaeus' house. Now, I have 4 young children, if you don't know our family well. In a little bit, Crystal's going to come up and teach with me. But I have 4 children, and my 2 oldest boys, who are 9 and 11, we're at the stage where we're having to teach them, a lot of manners and things, what's appropriate, what's not. And my 9-year-old right now is not here today because he's at a sleepover, and we're going to go pick him up after church. But my 11-year-old, who knew that his brother was going to be gone overnight, said to me the other night in the car, we're getting in the car, and he says, Dad, can I sleep over at Ryan's house this weekend? And my first response was, were you invited? And he was like, no. Well then, Cade, no, you can't just go and invite, and please don't go up to him after church and say, so I heard you invited, let's just keep this between us, okay? Probably too late now. It's like, no, Cade, his parents need to invite you over. Ryan needs to invite you over. We don't just invite ourselves over, right? Apparently, Mary never taught Jesus that simple little rule, that you don't just go invite yourself over to people's houses, because he clearly does it right here in the Bible. He invites himself over to Zacchaeus' house, but I tease about it, but this is actually an important piece of the story. Because a man like Zacchaeus, a tax collector, knew that there were certain society rules that you did not ever invite a religious leader, a teacher, to your home, because that invitation would be an insult to that religious leader or teacher. It would be automatically rejected. He knew that the best opportunity he had was just to simply climb a tree and hopefully see Jesus. What Jesus does is he turns the table and he invites himself to a sinner's home, because he's never too distant from an outsider, a sinner. He has intimate moments with the worst of sinners, right? And by inviting himself to Zacchaeus' home, he actually honors him. He brings dignity to Zacchaeus by inviting himself to his home, by opening his space to his space. What he's saying here is, Zacchaeus, you matter to me, and you matter to God. For years, I carried a laminated bookmark in my Bible that my mentor a long time ago gave me, and he said, let this mark who you are as a pastor and a Christ follower, Rex. And I kept it for years. And it said, because people matter to God, they will matter to me. And that's what's happening here. He's honoring Zacchaeus. He's bringing dignity to a man who knew he was nothing but the scum of the earth, right? Stealing and robbing from his own people so he could get rich. He doesn't shame him. He doesn't call out his sins or anything. He honors him, and therefore it's the honoring and bringing dignity to him that he actually repents. He realizes who he is and what he's done, and salvation comes to him. Well, part of our vision here, we as a church for 31 years have been a church that's on the move, if you will. Local outreaches, global outreaches, great, big, huge Christmas outreaches, and all those things will continue. Just this weekend, we served dinner to all the people at Camp Unity, Tent City, if you will, to the homeless. About 20 people. Pastor Linda led this great group, and some of you cooked those meals or went and served. Things are happening all the time. But what we want to do is have a vision for us as a church under the umbrella of Washington Cathedral called Serve Your City, where people will be able to go to the website and see exactly where and what we are doing as a church. And our job will then be to help plug you into outreach, your small group into outreach. And Crystal's going to come. I've shared the why. I started to get into a little what here, a little too much, and she's giving me that look like, mister, that's my stuff to talk about. We just celebrated 16 years of wedding bliss, right? Marriage? Yes.
All bliss.
She's so fortunate to have me, and I'll leave it at that.
Nice. It's nice to go into it from that. Yes. You were touching on my stuff here. So don't do that anymore. Serve Your City. So as you can see it up there, Serve Your City is our new Washington Cathedral local outreach ministry. This is a ministry that will be evolving over time. It's not something that we have set in stone and it's going to stay where it's at. It will evolve with time. We also recognize that because this is a very regional church, we have people that come from various cities that surround this church. We want to focus in on not just one, but those predominant cities that you come from. So as you can see up here, we have some cities. If you don't come from these cities, we're going to include you too. You're not left out. We currently aren't living in one of these 4 cities right now either. But Redmond, as Rex mentioned, there's some things that have been going on in the past. And in Redmond, they have the Redmond Family Village. But this is formerly known as the YWCA. And in that ministry over the years, Jackie and others have led groups to go and minister to the women there, to provide Christmas outreaches, to invite them into our church. So this isn't anything new, but this is an area that we will be expanding more on and into as the months go by. And with each one of these ministry outreaches, as you can see, we will have like a point person. You will not be sent out to minister just on your own. Hey, go on out to these organizations and have a good time. We will be directing you and guiding you and helping you do the mission of Jesus as a church. Kirkland Friends of Youth, maybe you have heard of them. They've actually been an organization that's been around for over 60 years. They do a lot of good in the community. They help with homeless youth. They offer counseling services for mental health and substance abuse treatment. And they also help with parenting. There are so many young kids out there trying to do things that they don't have any experience doing, and they may not even have the support network that you all have had, that we've been fortunate enough to have, and we can give of those services and help to those young people. In Woodinville, as Rex mentioned, we have Camp Unity, which is a tent city, and Pastor Linda, as he mentioned, has been leading to help provide dinners with all of you. And again, thank you so much for those of you who've participated. We take for granted those hot meals. We have them almost every day, and there are people who go without that on a very regular basis. But there's a lot that they need there. They need more than just dinners. They really need our time, our help, our friendship. And so there's something that they have requested that they would like to see happen, and that's adopt a tent. Now, don't get discouraged or overwhelmed and think, adopt a tent? What is this? I'm going to have to take a tent and, make it my own and figure out how to do everything for these people. This is really an opportunity for us to connect with families on a deeper level, to really connect and help them in ways that they need, build relationships. I know Rex talked at the last service about being excited to go and to get to know some of these families and spend time with them and go a little bit beyond what we have been doing there, to really be Jesus to these people, to love them the way we're loved, to love them the way we're called to love them. In Bothell, the North Shore School District has something that is called Book Buddies. And I'm not quite sure how long this has been going on, but it's a really, really cool program. And what it is where they ask for people to come and volunteer with their little ones in the elementary school who have difficulty with reading, that struggle in that area. And you would come and you would sit with them as they eat their lunch, and you'd read to them. And it doesn't sound too overwhelming. To me anyways, it doesn't sound too overwhelming. I have little ones at home. But it means so much more than just sitting and reading with them. It could end at that, and you've given some time and your love to them. But it could really develop into something bigger than that, a mentorship, really. And that's what some of these kids really need. Some of them come from broken homes. This weekend, Rex and I were able to go to this banquet where there were people who recognized for some of their time and service at one of our past schools. And this young girl had gone through the school, and she struggled. She was in the principal's office a lot. She didn't have a dad at home, and she really needed a mentor. There was a teacher who saw that she needed that, gave that to her, and it's not something that just ended after high school, which even through high school, that would be incredible. To this day, the teacher now has young kids. She has a young son, and that relationship goes. His little children call her big sister, and they spend time together, and that mentorship is still going on to this day. And they embraced, and it was huge because it was because of Jesus' love. It was because of what we're called to do. And it can start small by reading a book, and you just never know where that might end up. Rex mentioned that we want to be a church that goes beyond our four walls, and it's so important. Just that meaning of church being sent ones, that's just huge. I'm going to read really quickly in Isaiah 6:8. This is at a time when Israel had gone through a very difficult season, if you will. They'd lost their king. They needed some help. And this is when Jesus speaks to Isaiah. Then I heard the Lord asking, "Whom would I send as a messenger to my people? Who will go for us?" And I said, "Lord, I will go, send me." And there's an exclamation mark there. He says, "Lord, I will go." And I believe that's more than just for Isaiah. That is really for all of us. And you might be sitting here and just kind of taking in what you see, these opportunities that our church is going to offer you to get involved and serve. But there may be a time that as you get involved, where it really sinks deep in your heart and the Holy Spirit works, and you really can honestly say that, "Here am I, Lord, send me." And that's something over time that has really happened personally in Rex and I, and we're trying to implement within our family. Rex spent time last week talking about small groups, the TLCs that have formed. Some of you have been working and loving and connecting with each other for many years, and that is so cool. We really hope that your small group, your TLC, will get involved in one of these together, that this wouldn't just be an individualized service to those who need it, to the people Jesus calls us to, that it would be something that we do together. And you know what? It's not just going together, it's fun. It really is fun. And those relationships grow deeper and deeper. Some of our dearest, closest friends, lifelong friends, are our friends because we have this deeper connection of serving and going out and being the hands and feet of Jesus together. We hope that this would be an opportunity for your families to serve together, that you'd be able to bring your little ones with you, that it would be something they'd know that this is important to our family and the core value of who we are. It's a great opportunity to invite somebody. Sometimes there are people who are a little hesitant to maybe walk into church from that invitation you've given, maybe more than once even. But sometimes people are open to serving, that they know they want to give some of themselves. They want to give to the greater good of what's going on out in their communities. And that's when relationships are built. You're spending time with them. There is an author that I've grown to love. I connect with her in a way because she has 5 children. She doesn't take herself too seriously. She's super fun and funny, and we all need more funny in our lives, I think. I know I do. And she wrote a book a while ago called Interrupted. Her name is Jen Hatmaker. Rex actually showed a little clip not that long ago that she shared about her family serving. And when I read this book over the summer, she wrote it because she had a huge change in her life where Jesus interrupted, hence the name, interrupted her life. She'd been a Christian her entire life. And Jesus just did something in her that made her realize that she needed to do more, that she needed to be Jesus to the people in her area where she lived. And it opened my eyes the way it did for her as I read this. And so her and her husband started this church in Austin, Texas, and that's a huge part of their mission as a church is to serve. So there's a little portion I'm going to read real quickly. She says, "We've had people join us for social projects who would never join us for a church service. Our deepest cynic served burgers downtown with us 6 times before she set foot in church. She's a transformed believer now. Leaders of nonprofit secular organizations joined our community after our sustained service to their mission. We provided long-term care for a terminal couple with AIDS through care communities. After 5 months, they accepted Christ. 1 month before the husband died, one of our pastors was invited to speak about our mission initiative to all the employees at Walmart after we forged a partnership for our communities in school projects." And that to me just speaks volume because they're being the hands and feet of Jesus like he's called us to, and people are receiving Jesus in return. And that right there, people, is what it's all about. And I know that Rex has more that he'd like to share, so thank you so much for being able to share too.
Now, when my wife says, "I know I need more funny in my life," I hear, "Hey, Rex, that's permission to tell a lot more jokes at home." Am I hearing that right? No. She doesn't think I'm funny at all. Because I've got lots of good knock-knock jokes and just no one to tell them to. So, although Jackie loves knock-knock jokes, right? You do. Yes. When she's reading from that Jen Hatmaker book about, inviting people, serving along people who aren't believers, and then, 5 months later they're following Jesus in their church and all that stuff. Listen, our vision for outreach, first and foremost, it has to be before filling a crowd on Sunday mornings. It has to be about populating heaven. If it's not, then we got the whole thing backwards. This is about, Jesus didn't come to Zacchaeus and he repents of everything he had done. And he doesn't say, "Oh, because of your repentance, the temples will now be filled with more worshipers." No, he says salvation means rescue has come to this home. We want people to know Jesus personally, find salvation first. If they come to Washington Cathedral, we want that as well. We want them to then become a part of the community, have friendships here, right? But the goal in serving and outreach is to be really the hands and feet of Jesus, bringing the gospel to people through very tangible, loving, genuine friendship ways. Whether it was a tax collector, a prostitute, a Samaritan woman at the well, Jesus never kept far distance from these people. He was close with them. And you may have seen the table here and looked at the chair that faced outward and thought, wow, Rex really doesn't know how to set a table, does he? I do know how to set a table, except when it comes to the silverware. I still get confused on which goes on which side, and I just know the small fork, that's for my salad, okay? But I don't know which side it goes on. But I put this chair there purposely because I think it symbolizes so much. You see, this chair is turned on the outside because it represents the person who does not yet know Jesus, who is hurting in our community, who is lonely, who's one of the 25% that I talked about last week, who admits that they don't have a single confidant in their life. This does represent the so-called outsider of a faith community. But you've noticed the place setting is still there. The invitation is there. It's ready. We just need to draw them, compel them with the love of Jesus to come and sit at the Lord's table and commune with Jesus and commune with others. The invitation's already there. I remember a saying. There's an ancient rabbinical saying that it's this. Some of you have heard me say this before, especially if you're a small group leader. Thousands of years ago, they had this saying, may you be covered in the dust of your rabbi. Okay? And the idea of this was that rabbis had their disciples. And a rabbi would travel, right, and walk sometimes long journeys with their long cloaks, their long robes, their sandals, and that would naturally kick up the dust from the dirty pathways and the dirt roads. And their disciples, these young boys, their job was to follow very closely and carry whatever the rabbi needed, the scrolls, those types of things. And so they had the saying to the young disciples, may you be covered in the dust of your rabbi. Essentially, may you follow your rabbi so closely that the dust from his robe, as you follow, kicks up and begins to mark you. There's a time where Jesus is walking along the shores of Lake Galilee, and he sees these young men who clearly weren't capable of being a rabbi's disciple because they were out fishing. And he calls to them and he says, come, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. And these disciples would follow Jesus so closely that they were marked with the truth and grace and love of Jesus that would change the world. Our good intentions, our good thoughts, they come and go unnoticed. And I stand here today and I say, I'm the best at good intentions. We're all professionals at good intentions and good thoughts, right? And they come and go unnoticed. Our actions change the world. Nothing speaks commitment like where we put our resources and our bodies. And friends, my challenge to us today, and I'm going to ask the band to come on up. My challenge to us today is that we would be a church that desires to follow Jesus so closely that his truth, his grace, his love abounds in us. That when we go and we serve our city, whether it be with your family, maybe your small group, maybe you as just a person, you have time during your day to spend with a child at lunch for half an hour and read to him and help build his confidence. See, going out and honoring people, going out and bringing dignity to a homeless person, right? That they would just see genuine followers of Jesus loving them. With no hooks, no agendas, just love. Just genuine friendship and love. And that comes from following Jesus. And that when we go and we do that, we go not, yes, we go as a ministry of Washington Cathedral, but more importantly, we go in the name, the power of Jesus Christ. That's what it's all about. At the table, friends, I'll close with this. And then the band's going to close with a song. At the table, let this sort of be for outreach. Let this sort of be our anthem, if you will. At the table, everyone is welcome. Everyone. We can't say Jesus died for the sins of all mankind and not allow everyone to be welcome at Washington Cathedral. At the table, everyone is welcome because nobody is perfect. You don't have it together. They don't have it together, so let's just all not have it together, okay? Everyone is welcome. Nobody's perfect, but here's the best part of it. Here's where the hope comes in, because anything is possible. Anything is possible. The worst of the sinners in the East Side can find Jesus. And you know what? When I found Jesus at 7 years old, I came from a good home, good family, pretty much a privileged upbringing. But I was still lost. I needed Jesus' love. I needed acceptance. So whoever is out there on the East Side that needs this, may we be a church that knows that everyone is welcome at the table, because nobody's perfect. Despite how nice and pretty our houses and cars are here on the East Side, nobody's perfect. And anything is possible. Anything is possible. I'm going to pray, and then TJ's going to lead us in this song that I asked him to sing, The Power of Your Name. Would you stand with me? Let's do this. Let's stand. Jesus, I pray right now in your name that we would be a church on the move. We'd be a church on mission. That our vision for outreach would not be some flash in the pan thing, God, but this would be something that sets us as a church on a new trajectory. God, I'm grateful for the continued outreaches that our youth ministered to the Indian Reservation in Toppenish last weekend. I'm grateful that we have plans in place right now for an amazing Christmas outreach. There are plans in place for mission trips to Honduras this summer. All of these things, God, may serve your city, not just be some fad, God, but may it be a part of our DNA as a church. Lord, I pray that you give us favor within our community as we serve the cities. Bring deep conviction into our hearts if we've become indifferent to those who are not at the table. If we've become indifferent to those who don't know you, Jesus. Forgive us for that. May we be, God, about action and not good intentions. And I pray, Father, that one day, because nothing is impossible, one day we'll see people sitting in here worshiping you with passion because of the change, the rescue, the salvation that you've brought in their life. May it be so. In your name we pray.